a Friday. Yes, we've made it to the end of the week. And for the next 2.5 hours, taking you up to Royals baseball, we've got 580 Sports Talk coming your way. So glad you're along for the program today, whether you're listening on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, or on the YouTube stream. Yes, hello to our YouTube viewers on our YouTube channel, Sports on 580 WIBW. However you're consuming the program, I'm glad you are, and I appreciate you hanging out here on this Friday afternoon where we have a whole lot to talk about. Again, 30 fewer minutes than we might normally have to talk about it, because we will make way at 5:30 for the Royals Radio Network as the Royals open a 3-game series tonight. I'm sorry, the red-hot Kansas City Royals, winners of 6 in a row, get set to open a 3-game series tonight at Citizens Bank Park against the Philadelphia Phillies. So in the time we have together, we've got lots to touch on, and we'll go ahead and sprint headlong into it. I am Dan Lucero, once again hosting solo today. Brendan Dworzinski wrapping up his vacation. He'll be back on Monday, and it will be the dynamic duo of myself and Brendan on Monday's program. So if you missed him, you'll welcome him back for with open arms. Kyle Manthe is across the glass today. He has done a whale of a job producing the program and chipping in on the program this week. Appreciate him so much. And you'll hear from Kyle a little bit later on as well. But we do have a lot to get to together here in the next 2.5 hours. We have breaking Chiefs news. Fulton told you about it at the end of Mic'd Up, but if you're just tuning in, the Kansas City Chiefs are going to be without defensive lineman Charles Omenihu for the first 6 games of the 2023 campaign. He has been suspended by the NFL for a violation of the personal conduct policy stemming from a January arrest for domestic violence. So the highest profile free agent addition to the Chiefs defense this offseason will miss the first 6 games of the season, be eligible to return to the Chiefs for Week 7 against the Chargers. We're going to talk a lot more about that later on in the program. Coming up at 3:30, Matt Derrick's going to join me, our Chiefs insider from ChiefsDigest.com. And we're going to talk to Matt about the Omenihu suspension, what it means for the Chiefs, what their next steps might be to make sure they're covered in that 6-week span without a piece that they were really counting on in their pass rush, as well as all the other topics of discussion from the past week in the Chiefs kingdom. So we'll get Matt Derrick's thoughts and expand on the Omenihu suspension at about 3:35, 3:40 this hour. We've got some Chiefs audio we'll run you as well from St. Joe today. Joe Tooney spoke to the media at St. Joe. We'll play that. We'll also re-rack Andy Reid's brief press conference today in that 4 o'clock hour. So plenty of Chiefs coming up on the program today with the breaking news of the suspension, 6-game suspension to Charles Omenihu. We're also going to talk Chiefs in the 5 o'clock hour. Because we're done at 5:30, Mitch Holthus is going to join us at 5:15, the voice of the Chiefs, joining us for the 5th installment of our training camp reports brought to you by Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union. Today, we'll hear from Brett Veach and talk about the job and the challenge that Brett Veach has of putting together a roster that fits under the salary cap when your quarterback is such a big part of your salary cap number. Can't wait to hear from Mitch. We'll talk to him at 5:15 today. There are lots of other sports headlines we're going to get to. We're going to do What Is Wrong With You at 4:30. We're going to do a little bit of Change My Mind a little bit later on this hour. All the things you have come to know and love from this program on a Friday. We're going to get to all of those things. Your comments on the YouTube stream, if you are indeed watching again, youtube.com/@sportson580. You can comment on the live chat. Jump in the live chat. The water's fine. Love the crew that hangs out in the live chat, and you're invited to become a part of that. You can also text the program, 785-272-9429, 785-272-9429 is the text line. We'll get to your text throughout the program today. But we must begin today with the biggest news story of the day. I don't know about you folks, but when I woke up this morning and cleared the cobwebs, wiped the sleep from my eyes, and checked the Twitter app, which, by the way, it still shows up as Twitter on my phone. I haven't updated the app in 3 months. I don't ever want that black X on my phone. I'm never going to know what that is. The blue bird lives on Dan Lucero's iPhone. I can tell you that. But I opened up Twitter this morning, and I couldn't believe my eyes. I could not believe what I was reading. The tides were turning for the survival of the Pac-12. Ross Dellinger reported that. Ross Dellinger of Yahoo Sports. Nicole Auerbach of The Athletic reported that maybe Oregon and Washington had cold feet. There was cautious optimism. That was another phrase that got thrown around early this morning. That maybe, just maybe, the end result of today's previously scheduled meeting between the Pac-12 presidents and athletic directors would be an agreement on a media rights deal and the signing of a grant of rights. That was at 8:20 this morning. The first time I checked Twitter, that was the first thing I saw this morning. 8:20 this morning. It looked like maybe, just maybe, there was hope for the Pac-12 conference. And, of course, that news was met with a resounding, huh? What? Because we all went to bed last night at reasonable hours and kind of assumed that today would be the day that Arizona announced it was going to the Big 12, that maybe other schools were going to be willing to follow suit, that the Pac-12 was going to cease to exist as we have known it in some form or fashion for 108 years. But this morning, hope, cautious optimism. The tides were turning. An hour and a half later, Pete Thamel tweeted, quote, sources indicating to me and Heather Dinich that the Pac-12 is unlikely to land the plane this morning and get its media rights deal signed on this call today. Multiple variables at play here, including 11th hour push for Oregon and Washington. Everything remains fluid. Again, that was right before 10 o'clock Central Time. So right before 8 a.m. That was a bright and early Pac-12 meeting. They were up early. They put on a pot of coffee and they got to business. And it was not good. It was immediately not good. It was immediately apparent that those cautiously optimistic vibes had immediately dissipated. Because less than 2 hours later, Brett McMurphy was the first that I saw to tweet, breaking, Oregon and Washington joining Big Ten, becoming latest schools to leave Pac-12, putting Pac-12 future in doubt. Which was followed less than an hour later by McMurphy tweeting, Arizona State and Utah showing interest in the Big 12, sources told Action Network. Arizona has already applied for Big 12 membership, but Big 12 now, quote, exploring its options following news of Oregon and Washington leaving for Big 10. Let me put those quotes in context for you. Arizona State and Utah showing interest in much the same way that somebody who went on a fast or a hunger strike for a week would show interest in a juicy hamburger at the end of that week without food. That's the interest that we are likely talking about here. The Big 12 exploring its options. Yeah, like a buzzard explores its options, circling prey from the skies. That's the kind of option exploring the Big 12 is doing right now. There has not been a funeral. There has not been a burial. We are not doing a eulogy, but the Pac-12 would appear to be all but dead today. Even though, again, you might have awoken the same way I did, seeing cautious optimism. The tides are turning. Oregon and Washington aren't sure. You might be wondering why, how that could possibly have happened. And my educated guess on all of that is that throughout this entire week, Friday to Friday, from the day Colorado joined Big 12 to today, one of the narrative threads is the blame for killing it or blowing it up or whatever euphemism people wanted to use for the impending dissolution of the Pac-12 conference. Apparently, and it didn't matter who you read. You got this from Thamel. You got this from Dellinger. You got this from McMurphy. You got this from any of your insiders. But it was in every one of their stories. It was a recurring narrative theme that nobody wanted to be the school that killed the Pac-12. Even though we already know who the schools are that killed the Pac-12. It's USC and it's UCLA. They're leaving that league is the precipitating event for everything that has happened in the last 10 days. So if anybody's to blame, it's them and the Big Ten a little bit. But that was the narrative. Nobody wants to be the school or the athletic director or the university president that kills the Pac-12. Last night, it sounded like Arizona was all but gone. Arizona State and Utah were likely to follow, and that the Big Ten was ready with parachutes for Oregon and Washington. And then the tenor changed this morning as those Pac-12 schools were ready to meet with each other. How did that happen? To me, that felt more like public pressure to, again, not be that school that killed the Pac-12. Like, come on, Arizona. You don't really want to be first out the door, do you? You don't want to kill the league, do you? And ultimately, and Jason Scheer of Wildcat Authority reported this earlier today, Oregon and Washington didn't much care if they got the blame for killing the Pac-12. Most likely because they know it's not their fault. Oregon and Washington didn't care about that perception, decided to make the jump first. So it's Oregon and Washington to the Big 12 that gets reported first. They'll be the first ones through the proverbial wall, and now everyone else can do what's best for them based upon their options. For Arizona, that's join the Big 12. The anticipation is there could be an announcement on that, an announcement tomorrow. As soon as possible. And now we wait on Arizona State and Utah showing interest in that big juicy hamburger, because it's that or you don't eat at this point for those two schools. So there is no grand announcement today. Like Oregon and Washington have not tweeted out pictures of the Big Ten logo on their athletic websites. There's no comments from administrators or coaches. There's no press releases. Nothing along those lines yet. But we're going where we're going, which is Oregon and Washington in one direction, Arizona and likely Arizona State and Utah in another direction. And for the four schools that leaves behind in the Pac-12, who knows? Stanford to being independent, they could make it work. Cal to, I don't know, Division III. Like, I don't know what Cal's going to do. Cal doesn't know probably what Cal's going to do. Wazoo and Oregon State to a fate that, frankly, they deserve better than. A spot probably in the Mountain West. They deserve a better fate than that. They really do. But that appears to be where they are headed as well. And as the dust settles, or begins to settle, and we're not all the way settled, not by a long shot. But as the dust begins to settle, I think many college sports fans have today, some mixed emotions about this. Because part of my job is to cover the Big 12 Conference, specifically Kansas and Kansas State athletics. And as someone who has an interest in covering that league, in following the schools in that league, any additions to that league that bolster it, that make it more competitive and entertaining are good. And I celebrate them. I'm glad Colorado's back. I think that's good for the Big 12. I'd be happy to see Arizona join. I think they would add to the Big 12 conference, certainly on the hardwood. I would be thrilled if the Utah Utes joined the Big 12 conference. Not only would the Big 12 inherit two previously existing rivalries, including one of the nastiest rivalries in all of college sports, the Holy War between Utah and BYU. That would be a conference game. But Utah's good and fun at football, and their crowds are great, and their stadium's cool, and they would make Big 12 football better. And they've got history in basketball, not great recent history, but they've got history of being competitive, turning out NBA players. I would love it if Utah joined the league. Arizona State, I'm a little more lukewarm on, but they feel like they might be a bit of a sleeping giant. They feel like they should be a lot better. Even if they just dominated recruiting in the state of Arizona, in the greater Phoenix area, like they probably ought to, that would get them to a pretty good spot. But I am in favor of all of those schools joining the Big 12. I think that's good for the Big 12 to have those 16 schools. If those 4 schools, the 4 Pac-12 schools, the 4 corner schools, join this league along with the 12 that are going to be in it starting next year after Texas and Oklahoma league, that's a good league. That's an entertaining league. It's one that Kansas and Kansas State can compete in regularly. And that's good for me. That's good for business. That's fun. I'm in. I'm all in from that perspective. Good for the Big 12 conference. But again, mixed emotions. I take no joy in the fate that awaits the Pac-12. Again, they've existed in some form for 108 years since they were the Pacific Coast Conference, founded in a hotel in Portland in 1915. I love Pac-12 After Dark football. I love Bill Walton on the basketball broadcasts. USC and UCLA playing in the Big Ten feels wrong. So does Oregon and Washington. They will never feel like members of the Big Ten Conference. Wazoo and Oregon State playing in the Mountain West doesn't feel right either. And I'm disappointed for the loss of the traditions and the loss of the rivalries, the probable loss of the rivalries. I will be quick as anyone to point out, if Washington still wants to play Washington State football, they can. Just like if Missouri and Kansas had wanted to play in football all this time, they could have. You've got 3 non-conference dates. Go ahead and schedule a rivalry game. You don't, no rule says you have to schedule 3 patsies for your rivalry games. Clemson and South Carolina figure out a way to play every year. Georgia and Georgia Tech figure out a way to play every year. Iowa and Iowa State figure out a way to play every year, even though sometimes I wish they wouldn't for my eyeballs' sake. But they figure out a way. If it's important, you figure it out. So it's not the death of those rivalries, but it won't be a conference game, and that will be different. And change is scary, and sometimes change is bad. But I am hearing a little too much today, I think. Reaction along the lines of, this is the end of college athletics as we know it. Or this is the death of college football. And maybe for some people it is. Now, I'm not trying to, obviously I spoke in a mocking tone there, but I'm not trying to shortchange or dismiss anyone's feelings on the topic. But you know what college football is to me? Maybe you can relate. Maybe this is what college football is to you too. But you know what college football is to me? College football is about full on-campus stadiums in the fall, marching bands, fight songs, cheerleaders and chants and dances, things that persist as tradition for the silliest of reasons, like a library burning down and only leaving the band with one sheet of music to play. That's college football to me. College football's innovation on offense and defense that sometimes takes decades to extend from Saturdays to NFL Sundays. The air raid, the run and shoot, the read option, the RPO, the athletic quarterback, the 3-3-5. Those things are college football to me. Even as we see all of those things more and more in the NFL, those things are college football to me. College football is rivalries and trophies that exist, maybe not in the form that they used to, but exist and mean so much to so many, even if their origins are unclear or have nothing to do with football. That's college football to me. That didn't die today. When I was a kid, when I first started following sports, when I was 6, 7, 8 years old, the Southwest Conference existed. You know, the old Southwest Conference with SMU and TCU and Texas and Arkansas and all those other Texas schools. Yeah, that used to exist. That used to be a thing. By the way, Texas and Oklahoma, when they weren't in the league, they played every year. They made that happen. Rivalries don't have to die just because you're not in the same league. But the Southwestern Conference existed when I was a kid. The SEC was the only league that played a championship game. The only Power 5 conference, anyhow. And speaking of Power 5, that wasn't a term we knew anything about. But we knew that the big deal conferences, they could be as many as 12 teams. They could be as small as 8 teams. There was something called a Bowl Alliance. Notre Dame was a legitimate national power. There are a lot of things that have changed in 30 years. I know that's a long time. I know I'm not a kid anymore. But my point is, broadly, that things have always changed in college football. But the things that make college football great, they don't change. It still matters just a little bit too much in places like Auburn and Tuscaloosa and Columbus, Ohio. They still play Hail to the Victors in Ann Arbor. Ralphie still runs in Boulder. Texas is still overrated every single year. See, some things never change. CBS still has the best theme song, even if it plays before Iowa, Penn State instead of Auburn, Georgia. You can change a lot of things about college football. You can pull it in a direction and distend it like it's putty and make it almost unrecognizable from the form that we've come to know it taking for so many years. And that is, make no mistake, what has happened, what will happen as conferences continue to blur geographic lines and traditions, and some of these rivalries do disappear for good. You can stretch it, you can pull it, you can distend it, you can change it, but you cannot kill what makes college football great. We'll get used to it, and we'll get used to the next thing, too, because it's not stopping here. I think the SEC is going to look at the Big Ten and say, oh, they have 18 teams, but we're good at 16. No, that's not going to happen. You think the Big Ten stops at 18? I don't think so. That's kind of an unwieldy number. Why wouldn't they take more? There is an endpoint to all of this. We are speeding towards it. But once we get there, 30 years from now, yeah, we'll look back on the way it used to be with some fondness, but we'll enjoy what it is, too. You can't kill this sport. You can't kill college athletics. But they are sure going to look a lot different. And for the Big 12, they're going to look different maybe as soon as tomorrow if the reporting is correct and that Arizona is going to announce their move to Big 12 as soon as tomorrow, potentially. We're going to take our first break here on 580 Sports Talk. Matt Derrick's going to join us here in about 10 minutes to talk Chiefs. But first, a quick round of Change My Mind is coming up next on 580 Sports Talk.
FM 104.9.
It's 3:32. We're just getting revved up on this edition of 580 Sports Talk. Matt Derrick, our Chiefs insider, is going to join us momentarily on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. But first, around to change my mind, we bring in producer Kyle. Hi, Kyle.
Hello, Dan.
A lot of sports happening that feels very cataclysmic, like end of the world-ish on the college football side. So let's take the temperature down a little bit and argue about something trivial. Change my mind. Ketchup doesn't belong on hot dogs or bratwurst.
I'm going to, for the record, I do agree with you. So
this
is very difficult for me because I'm very strong.
You are a right-thinking American is what that makes you.
Most people say that it's weird that I don't put ketchup on my hot dog or any kind of thing like that. I think the counter argument would be it just needs a little more. It's just a little plain, just the dog and the bun. You need a little something.
Mustard.
You need a little different. That's definitely an option.
All you need, mustard, maybe a little onion. I support if you want to go like crazy loaded with the Chicago style hot dog with like the sport peppers and I don't do pickles. I don't get down with the pickle at all.
Good chili dog.
Yeah, chili dog, chili cheese. I'm not opposed to dressing up a hot dog. Plain glizzy is very strange to me. But ketchup, I'm out. I'm out on ketchup on the hot dog. I don't need it. I don't need it.
I'm also out on ketchup on just most things in general. I don't tend to have ketchup as a condiment of choice for anything, really.
I appreciate that. Mustard, onion, and some sauerkraut, according to Barbara in the YouTube comments. Not a huge kraut guy. I'm just here and there. Pick my spots with the sauerkraut. Like if I got like a sizable like German sausage or Italian sausage, a little sauerkraut with that. Pretty solid, but I think it makes the bun a little soggy for me. That's for me. But no ketchup on hot dogs for me. You got a hot take to bring to change my mind today, Kyle?
We'll see how the temperature of how hot this take is. Change my mind that the red hot Kansas City Royals are going to finish with under 105 losses on the year, meaning they'll have to go 23-29 or better over the last 52 games of the year.
That's quite an ask. It's asking a lot of their pitching staff. I can tell you that right now. They're on pace right now after their 6-game winning streak. They are on pace to go 51-111. So I would still have to say they're gonna finish with. I still think they're gonna finish with the most losses in franchise history. But I mean, they've shown what a strong finishing kit could look like. If they get consistent starting pitching, which is something they haven't gotten all year. And if Bobby Witt Jr. stays red hot, which I'm not going to bet against that. He looks great right now. That's the formula, but I think it's going to be too little too late to avoid the ignominious distinction of being the worst Royals team ever.
It's sad to say that 23-29 feels unrealistic. I think there was a year, since they are so commonly like August and on, they'll finish up with a hot streak to give the fans hope and save the season tickets for the next year. I think like 2019, the year Ryan O'Hearn really burst on the scene, hit like 12 home runs in like 40 something games or something. I think they were literally a 500 team like after the All-Star break, and we were all going to the next year like, oh, they could be something. They got Ryan O'Hearn and Mondesi was healthy and playing really well, and they were literally a good team for a good stretch of the year before, and they just always seem to end the season better. But 105 is kind of a tough ask given where they put themselves in.
23-29 is a 72 win pace, roughly. And I don't think that this team that has played like a 51 win team for 4 months is suddenly 21 wins better than that. I have my doubts. So I think they're going to come up a little short of that. But hey, they're playing well right now, and hopefully they can keep that up as they start a 7-game road trip in Philadelphia this weekend. Pregame at 5:30, first pitch 6:10 tonight here on 580 WIBW, by the way. We'll take a break here on 580 Sports Talk. That was Change My Mind. When we come back, we're going to pick the brain of Matt Derrick, our Chiefs insider from ChiefsDigest.com. That's coming up here on 580 Sports Talk.
104.9.
We look forward to the challenge. We look forward to, to that challenge.
Mr. Official, let me ask you something. How can 6 of you miss a play like that?
His name is Matt. Are you ready?
My name is Matt.
Let's go.
Matt Derrick is our Chiefs insider. He joins us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline from ChiefsDigest.com. Joins us every Friday at this time here on 580 Sports Talk. And big Chiefs news breaking within the last hour or so. To get to, Matt, no Charles Omenihu for the first 6 games of 2023. He's been suspended by the NFL for a violation of the personal conduct policy. I can't imagine the Chiefs were particularly blindsided by this, Matt, but how do you think they will react internally as far as addressing now a need for the first 6 games of this regular season on their defensive line?
Yeah, you're right, Dan. I mean, they weren't blindsided. They knew this was out there when they signed him, and you never know how long the wheels of NFL justice, as such as it is, to wind down. But this came back relatively quickly. I wasn't entirely certain that it would get handed down before the beginning of the season, but it did. And, the Chiefs were certainly hoping that it would be less than 6 games, but 6 games it is for Charles Omenihu. And, honestly, we've seen that, the preparing for, without Charles Omenihu, I think most of training camp, I mean, there's been a lot of rotation alongside the defensive line, even in positions where, you feel like and see the Chiefs using Omenihu. Which they're going to, plan on using him across that defensive line, a lot of passing situations, maybe kicking him inside because he's done that before. One thing I think is probably most interesting is, especially the last couple of days, we've seen Malik Herring playing a lot of the same type of role that Omenihu has been playing, as far as, spending some time with the ones out on the edge, kicking inside. Today, Felix Anudike-Uzomah got a lot of time with the ones. Omenihu wasn't practicing today because he's had a calf spasm the last couple of days, what the team said. So you've seen a couple of guys rotating through there. They're going to get Mike Dana back at some point too. They've been pretty cautious with him to make sure that he's ready for the start of the season. So from a number standpoint, they should be okay there. Obviously, for the Omenihu, they knew this was a possibility, and they were preparing just to make sure they had him for the second half of the season. Now you've got, you need to have some other guys step up, but they do have the numbers there that I think they feel pretty comfortable about their situation for the first 6 games.
Any chance they look outside the organization, or at least outside their current locker room, to maybe bring in a veteran like a Carlos Dunlap, who's still a free agent, to maybe try and fill a void? Or do you think they're satisfied with their in-house options for now?
It is always possible that they could, and certainly if any injuries pop up, I mean, which essentially they kind of have. I mean, they've been cautious with Mike Dana for a reason, to make sure they don't bring him back from his calf injury too long. Even though that they've been calling this a spasm with Omenihu, calf spasm for a couple of days is a little much. But again, if they're just wanting to be cautious with everybody, you kind of see why. Really, the biggest holdup with trying to bring in any outside help, especially veteran help, is the cap situation. And with the cap situation, we run straight back into our favorite question, which is all about Chris Jones.
Yeah, let's talk about Chris Jones. Does the Omenihu suspension increase the urgency from the Chiefs side to get Jones into camp?
I mean, now you have the certainty that you're going to be playing 6 games without Omenihu. I mean, you want Chris Jones in here as quickly as possible. The question really becomes, how much time does Chris Jones need? Doesn't need a full training camp. I don't think that's the case for a veteran like him, but he needs some time. I mean, you can't just go from 0 to 60 without any acclimation and preparation. And so, I think if you're Chris Jones and your Chiefs, you really want him to have at least 3 weeks. I mean, that's what you really need to get up to football speed and make sure you're doing it the right way and not putting yourself in a bad situation. I mean, how many times have we seen guys, who hold out or were missing the beginning of camp and come in and, they're not in football shape. I mean, Chris Jones is in great condition working out in Florida, but he's not going up against Joe Thuney every day. I mean, he's not in football shape. So that's the big buzzword this time of year is, getting guys ready for that. And so that takes time. I mean, you need to acclimate yourself. You need to make sure you get up to speed, because one of the sure ways it seems to get hurt sometimes is you're a guy who comes in late the camp and you're working your way in, and other guys have already caught up and have hit their football shape and their football speed. And if you try to keep up with them, bad things can happen. So, yeah, I mean, I think that certainly before the preseason game next week, I mean, if you're the Chiefs, you'd like to have Chris Jones in there because that should then be enough time for him to get ready for the season opener.
Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com is our Chiefs insider, joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline here on 580 Sports Talk. Follow Matt on Twitter at Matt Derrick. Matt, is the tenor of the conversation surrounding Jones changing meaningfully, you think, or is there still pretty good confidence, pretty good optimism that something's going to get done and fairly soon between the two sides?
Yeah, I haven't heard anybody who's really talking about there being any concern from that standpoint of, like things really going south. Like, for instance, that, these two sides just end up so far apart that something happens for the long term and Chris Jones isn't in Kansas City. That doesn't seem to be anybody's concern. Right now it's just about a little bit of the surprise that Chris Jones didn't show up for camp. A little bit of, just concern that they are seemingly pretty far apart right now. But I think there's also a certain inevitability with it that, at least on the Chiefs side of things, we really haven't heard a whole lot from the Chris Jones side. But on the Chiefs side of things, I mean, they feel like that, hey, they love Chris Jones. They want him here. They feel like Chris wants to be in Kansas City, and one way or another, they'll work it out. And that there's really not any other option. It's not like you're going to trade Chris Jones. There's no place for him to go and get paid this time of year because nobody has any money. So, the two sides are kind of, stuck with each other. I mean, and not in a bad way. I mean, I think they both want to be stuck with each other. It's just, can they make the numbers work and make both sides happy? And at this point, they just haven't figured out that magic number yet.
Let's talk about a pleasant topic surrounding the Chiefs defensive line for a change. Turk Wharton's back. He's off the PUP list. He's practicing, coming off of that ACL injury he suffered last year. How big a role do you think Wharton can play for this year's Chiefs defense? Because it sure looked like he was ready to step into a much larger role before he got hurt last year.
Yeah, and getting to see him, it looks like he's in really good condition. This is about the right time. As far as coming back from an ACL these days, the timing is right. He looks, like I said, in really good shape. And at least during some of the run-throughs, they already have him, out there with the one. He hasn't started team activities yet since he is in that acclimation period. But I would expect that once he's ready to go, I mean, he will probably be right there next to Derek Nottie. I mean, I think he is. Without Chris Jones there, I mean, he's one of their starters, so they want him to be there, So I think, once he gets acclimated next week, we're probably going to start seeing more of him. I wouldn't be surprised they held him out of the first couple of preseason games, let him get his legs under him a little bit more. But I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, yeah, without Chris Jones there, Tershawn Wharton is one of their two best tackles. So I'm really interested to see what he can do because you were right. He really started looking like he was coming into his own before the injury. And we'll see what's there, but he seems to be in great shape and has a great attitude right now.
Joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline is Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. You can check out ChiefsDigest.com for all the latest Chiefs news and notes. You can hear Matt on 580 Sports Talk every Friday at this time. You can find him on Twitter at Matt Derrick. Matt, some injuries in the secondary, guys being held out of practice. Of course, Nazeeh Johnson, unfortunately, suffered a serious knee injury that's going to keep him out for the duration of 2023. The first team reps today went to a 7th-round pick and Nick Jones from Ball State and an undrafted free agent, Echo Boydo from Kansas State. And we know that the Chiefs have struck gold quite frequently with late-round draft picks and undrafted free agents at defensive back. How real are the chances that either Jones or Boydo makes the roster and maybe plays a role this season?
Yeah, once Nazeeh Johnson went down, I mean, I think that solidified, Nick Jones' roster spot pretty well. Obviously a draft pick of theirs, somebody that they like, but also somebody that they think has versatility. It's a guy who can play inside and outside. Today, the way that, and I think that with the right kind of absences today was maybe a little bit of the reason why they structured the secondary the way that they did. Jalen Watson was out for personal reasons, not an injury, but he wasn't there. L'Jarius Sneed has had the knee inflammation, so they had him out again today. Joshua Williams was there, but they had him running with the twos, which, really, even when Najee was there, between Johnson, Watson, and Williams, they've been really rotating those three around pretty well. But today gave him a chance, hey, put McDuffie on the left side to get him experience where Sneed usually is, get Jones an opportunity to come in and play the slot, and then see what Echo Boydo can do. Because he's kind of next man up. I mean, he's really played himself into that position as kind of being the borderline guy, the Mendoza line, if you will, for the cornerback spot. I think he's got a real shot at making the roster. I mean, especially if there's any more injuries or issues, I think he's right there. He's absolutely a solid practice squad candidate. But he's been very impressive. Hasn't been afraid. He's played that position. I think fast is exactly the way that the Chiefs want. He's got the size that they like. There's been a lot to like with Boydo, and he's been very impressive. So I think there's a spot for him. If it's not on the roster, certainly on the practice squad.
Regarding L'Jarius Sneed, who, as you mentioned, did not practice today with knee inflammation, is there real concern about his injury long-term, or are they just doing some vet maintenance with a pretty important cog in their defense?
It seems like mostly vet maintenance. They have been having him on a snap count anyways, both him and McDuffie, since they didn't participate in OTAs. But I think there has to be some long-term, because there has, been with LJ, there's been some injuries that just kind of linger a little bit. And, and he's, I think the way that he plays, his style of play is always going to lend itself to that because he plays so physically. But that brings you into a little bit of, the long-term concern. And maybe one of the reasons why Sneed doesn't have a long-term extension yet is, you do worry about a guy like that with his style and his aggressiveness that, he's going to miss some games just consistently because of it. And the knee has given him some problem on and off over the years too. That's always been an issue. It does seem like they're just siding on the side of caution, especially with the weather the last few days. Since there has been rain, they've been going in and out, of the facility as well. And I get with Sneed, I don't think that they really want him working on turf indoors right now. So anytime there's a possibility that it's either going to be wet conditions or they might have to work inside, it seems like they've been erring on the side of caution and keeping Sneed out of the action.
Couple more questions for Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. He's our Chiefs insider, joining us here on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline on 580 Sports Talk. If you had to guess right now, if the Chiefs played a game on Sunday, who would be back to return the kick? Who would be back to return the punt?
Yeah, I think right now for sure, for kickoff returns, I think would be Deneric Prince. And for punt returns, it would be Richie James. And I don't think that right now there's a whole lot of competition for either one of them. I mean, we'll see what happens in the preseason games, because one fumble, one turnover can change it in a heartbeat. But right now, those two seem to be the comfortable leaders at both those spots.
Last thing, Matt, give me one nugget or one play or one moment, something that stood out to you as you got a chance to observe practice today.
I mean, it's hard not to watch these practices lately and not have a Justin Ross moment at some time or another. I mean, and I mean that in both good and bad ways, because I feel bad for Ross, because on the one hand, hey, it's great to be a folk hero. It is absolutely wonderful to have the legend of Justin Ross being built, because every day there's a highlight play that you can put out of Justin Ross. And the Chiefs do that. They absolutely do that. They don't always show the bad plays, though. And he has, for all intents and purposes, I don't care if he is technically a second-year player, he's a rookie. And he's going to make mistakes, and he's going to have some bobbles, and he's going to have some drops. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, it's just realistic. So I worry that, hey, he's going to get into preseason games. Everybody's going to be expecting him to just make these one-handed catches going out of bounds and just dragging his toes. And then they're going to get really, really frustrated and confused when he drops a pass in the middle of the field. And it's just going to be because he's a young guy. So I think he's going to make some highlight plays. I think he's going to probably make the roster. So he's going to impress you, but I think he might have you pull your hair out at times too. We'll see.
Might end up having to buy my ticket for that hype train after all. I've resisted all the last 2 years, but it sure seems like the Justin Ross hype train is leaving the station. Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com is our Chiefs insider here on 580 Sports Talk and joins us every Friday at this time. Check out ChiefsDigest.com. Find Matt on Twitter at Matt Derrick. Matt, always a pleasure to speak with you. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Same to you, Dan. Take care, everybody.
That is Matt Derrick, and that is where we are going to wrap up our number one. But we're far from done with talking Chiefs. When we come back to start the 4 o'clock hour, we're going to discuss further the impact of the 6-game suspension handed down by the NFL today to defensive lineman Charles Omenihu and what the Chiefs' options might be with that going forward. We're also going to hear from Andy Reid, who spoke briefly to the media today in St. Joe, and we'll hear from the veteran offensive guard Joe Thuney as well. Plus, What is Wrong with You is coming up next hour, and we'll whip through some sports headlines as well on a shortened edition today of 580 Sports Talk here on 580 WIBW. Let's get it. Hour number 2, 580 Sports Talk on a Friday. A lot going on this Friday. Glad you're around to discuss it with me on this edition of 580 Sports Talk. I am Dan Lucero. Solo dolo, one more day. So just an hour and a half. I got to do this on my lonesome with Kyle Manthy's help across the glass. Brendan Dworzinski will be back from vacation and rejoin me on Monday. Thanks for being with us, whether you're listening on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, whether you're listening on the web, 580WIBW.com, or perhaps you are checking us out on the YouTube stream, our YouTube channel, Sports on 580 WIBW. Hi, guys and gals. However you're joining us, I'm just glad you're joining us, and I really appreciate having you along here today on 580 Sports Talk. A big breaking news day today, and we have more breaking news from Jason Scheer of Wildcat Authority, the Arizona 24/7 sports website. Tweeted this just as we were going to break to wrap up the first hour of the program. Utah is expected to be accepted into the Big 12 as soon as tonight. Announcement could come within next 48 hours. So they would appear to be number 15, because Scheer has also reported earlier today things can change, but the plan is for there to be an official announcement from Arizona tomorrow. So Arizona, number 14. Utah, number 15. Arizona State, probably number 16. The university president is the impediment when it comes to Arizona State. We talked a little bit about Michael Crow on yesterday's program. Michael Crow has been a longtime Pac-12 backer. Big support for the conference, and sees leaving the league as something of a betrayal and something of an admission that maybe he was wrong to do it. Wrong to put his faith and trust into men like Larry Scott and George Kliavkoff. Boy, are they going to go down in history. We're going to be studying those two, Larry Scott and George Kliavkoff, in the history of college athletics. When the story is told, we're going to be studying those two guys as an example of bag fumbling of the highest order. But anyway, Michael Crow doesn't want to follow Arizona into the Big 12. He was the guy digging his heels in. He was the reason Arizona probably didn't jump early, probably weren't the first to jump. But with Arizona seemingly on its way, with sounding like Big 12 might vote to accept Utah as soon as tonight, can't imagine Arizona State is going to allow itself to be left behind. And I would imagine that they would be team number 16. And again, this could all look very different by the time we reconvene our program on Monday morning, or Monday afternoon, I should say. It could look very different by Monday morning. Who knows? But that is the latest. And again, Jason Scheer's been on top of this. I'm not citing him because, I'm citing him because I trust him, because he's been right consistently for the last 2-3 months. And he says it sounds like the Big 12 is going to vote on Utah as soon as tonight, and there could be an announcement within the next 48 hours as far as the Utes joining the Big 12. I'm excited about that one. First of all, I've got some family ties to the University of Utah. I've got a lot of family who lives out there. I believe my grandparents went there. My great uncle was a football player and for a time the head coach of Utah football way back in the day. So I've got some family ties to the Utes, and I like to see them do well. And they're good and fun in football. Like, if this is all this is about, and at the end of the day, it kind of is. I mean, I know Brett Yormark has kept basketball as a consideration as he's discussed realignment and taking teams from other leagues. At the end of the day, football's driving this bus. We all know it. It's sure as hell not the non-revenue sports. This is about football, and if it's all about football, then let me say Utah football joining the Big 12 rules, brother. I am fired up for some late nights at Rice-Eccles Stadium, one of the most beautiful settings for college football. I am excited to have Utah and BYU as a conference game. One of the most hateful rivalries in all of college sports. I'm excited to have Utah-Colorado maintain their rivalry that has kind of become fun. I've enjoyed the rumble in the Rockies. Maybe Colorado hasn't enjoyed it as much because Utah's been really good in recent years and Colorado hasn't. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for Utah on a personal level, on a enjoyment of watching them play football level. I think that's a good addition. And again, that is what Jason Scheer is reporting. So some breaking news there. A lot of news, as I said, has broken throughout today. Earlier, again, in case you have missed it, Chiefs defensive lineman Charles Omenihu has been suspended for the first 6 games of the 2023 season after he was found to have violated the league's personal conduct policy. Omenihu was arrested for domestic violence during the playoffs last year. It was a pretty high-profile deal. We talked about it. It came up in our headline segment on this program when it happened last year. And typically, players who are involved in domestic violence situations who are arrested, never mind charged, players who are arrested tend to have some level of punishment handed down upon them from the NFL. We saw this last year with Willie Gay. Willie Gay got a 4-game suspension for a domestic violence incident. The typical length of those suspensions is 6 games, unless there are aggravating or mitigating circumstances. And Omenihu got 6 games. So, as we talked to Matt Derrick about it, the Chiefs were not blindsided by this. This can't have come as a surprise to them. They knew who they were signing. They knew what had happened back in January. They chose to sign him anyway, which, I mean, if you made a value judgment on every player that every team in sports signed, yeah, sometimes your favorite team or your least favorite team, all 32 teams in the NFL have signed some bad guys. And they've signed it knowing that they were bad guys, or they've signed some guys who did some bad stuff. I shouldn't just say bad guys. That's too reductive. I should say guys who maybe did some bad stuff. That's either too reductive or not reductive enough in some cases. Obviously, there's degrees of separation between, like, Alvin Kamara got in a fight. He got suspended for 3 games today. So, too, did Chiefs legend Chris Lamons, because they were in a fight in Vegas during Pro Bowl weekend. And Kamara's gotten a 3-game suspension for that. So there's degrees between what he did and what Charles Omenihu did and what, like, Deshaun Watson did. And those degrees are represented in the length of suspension for those 3 gentlemen in particular. But if you sign a player who has been involved in an off-the-field incident, who has been arrested, and the news of that arrest is public, then number one, you have to be prepared for whatever backlash you might receive from your fan base regarding that signing. But number 2, you got to be prepared that you might not have that player for a length of time. And for the Chiefs, it's going to be 6 games without Charles Omenihu. Now, when we talked to Matt Derrick about that, and again, thanks to Matt of ChiefsDigest.com joining us in the last hour as our Chiefs insider, he said the way they've been preparing for this has maybe been a little bit subtle, but they've been giving a lot of reps to a lot of different guys with the first-team defense in training camp, moving some guys inside, seeing if they can handle it. Malik Herring is somebody who Matt mentioned is maybe having an increased chance to get some playing time, make the roster. I wonder if this opens up an opportunity for B.J. Thompson, the 5th-round rookie out of Stephen F. Austin. I think Mike Dana might be a guy that they can kick inside for a little extra pass rush on the interior in obvious passing situations. He's got to get healthy, of course, but I would assume he'd be good to go by week 1, and he might be an option for that. Maybe there's a free agent out there that the Chiefs could sign and bring in as not just a short-term option, but maybe somebody who could help them for the duration of the season. Obviously, the salary cap makes that hard for the Chiefs, but Carlos Dunlap is still out there. And I still think that makes a certain amount of sense because I think Dunlap's got juice. I think he can help. I think you bring him in, then you're less reliant on Felix Anudike-Uzomah as a rookie who admits admitted when he spoke to the media earlier this week, yeah, I'm a little bit behind the curve. I got some catching up to do. And that's not to say he won't. I think he will eventually, but then you're less reliant on him, particularly in the first 6 games. If you bring in a veteran who knows the system, knows how to play in the league like a Carlos Dunlap. But again, you got to make that work under the cap. So that gets tricky, which obviously the primary concern for the Chiefs regarding their salary cap is how do they make a Chris Jones extension fit? How do they make that work? So that probably also limits their options to bring a veteran in. But yeah, no way the Chiefs were blindsided on this. And they'll handle it just like they handled Willie Gay's 4-game suspension last year, just like any team handles any suspension. Next man up. That's how it always is. That's how it will always be. Chiefs practice today at St. Joe. After practice, a couple of players met with the media. We'll hear from Joe Thuney in a bit, but first, wanted to play you Andy Reid's brief comments from St. Joe to the media earlier today. Eventually.
We have all the politicians that are here, and I'm talking. There's something wrong here. All right. So listen, there's really nothing new on the injuries other than tranquil practice today. Turk continued to rehab. Same guys that were hurt before are the same guys that are on the list. Listen, it was good work today. Today was a red zone day, a little bit shorter field, but the guys kept the intensity level up. I thought they did a nice job of competing. Defense is creating these small windows down in there, which it's tough shooting, which we appreciate. I mean, it's good work for the offense. It's also good for the team. So, anyways, with that, time's yours.
Gabbert talked yesterday about how much he's enjoyed this camp and learning the new offense and playing for you. What have you seen from him that he brings to the table as a backup quarterback?
Yeah, well, he's got that experience. He's seen the league for 13 some years, whatever it is, and he's got a pretty good feel on things. There's not too much that he hasn't seen from a defensive standpoint presented to him. And likewise in the offense, he's got a little familiarity with the offense, but just learning and staying on top of that becomes important. Hey, come here. Huh? Come here. So it's what are you doing? Huh? All right. So anyways, that's what I've seen. Yeah, personal reasons. He was gone. Yeah. He was excused. Yeah.
Coach, can you tell much about a receiving core? We all want to know how they're going to play. Can you tell a lot about them until they get into an actual game?
Well, you want to add that to it. The thing you're looking for here is a retention of all the plays, opportunity to catch the ball in tight quarters, contested throws, and so that you get that part of it. But you got to see the game, see what happens.
Coach, how do you like the job so far? Eco Boydo trying to push it around.
Right. Yeah, you know what? He's doing a nice job. He's really doing a nice job. So we'll see how he did today, but he's been getting better every day. Challenging. Told me he's got to eat a little bit. He's kind of thin, but he's a heck of a competitor, and he's got good skill.
Before you said you like when the offense does well certain times, defense the other. That's a good camp. How did you like the back and forth today, especially?
Yeah, I thought it was good. I thought it was a good challenge all the way around. I thought the defense did a nice job of protecting the end zone, and I just thought it was a good day. Yeah, good day.
Andy, how do you feel about Clyde's camp so far and how he fits into the mix?
Yeah, I like what he's doing. He's practicing hard, aggressive. He's doing a nice job. You can tell he had experience and all that.
Coach, we've got a lot of rain at camp this year. How can days like this prepare your guys for the season, though? It's a little bit rainy outside.
Yeah, so as long as there's not lightning, it's all good. We'll come out and work, and somewhere that'll pay off for you down the road. Just footing, grasping the football, catching the football. I mean, all those things, both sides of the ball and special teams. So we've had a little bit of rain. It's good for the farmers.
That is Andy Reid speaking earlier today at Chiefs camp. One thing he said that stood out in that brief 3-minute press conference that he held was the discussion about wide receivers and what he looks for when he evaluates them. And one thing that he said was contested catches, plays in traffic. And that kind of ties in nicely to what a certain 6'4" undrafted free agent rookie out of Clemson has certainly shown that he can bring to the table if the clips posted on Chiefs social media is any indication. And Matt Derrick calling a shot. He's saying Justin Ross is going to make the roster. You heard it from him first. And again, if you're like me and you've been hesitant to jump on that hype train, it's going to leave the station with or without you, it sounds like, with regards to Justin Ross. Also talking to the media today, Joe Thuney. We don't always get to hear from the Chiefs offensive lineman, the veteran. Joe Thuney talked to the press today. Here's what Joe had to say.
Yeah, it's going well. Juwan and Donovan are great. They're really hard workers, getting the playbook. Very detail-oriented guys, work really hard. It's been a great group to be a part of. And the coaching staff's done a great job, just getting on the details. And so, yeah, it's been going really well.
Do you miss not having Chris here, given he's one of the best interior pass rushers in the league to prepare you for the season?
Yeah, like you say, he's such an elite player and makes everyone around him better, just working against him day in and day out. And, I just try and focus on what I can control and just go out there and try and get better each day. And, that's kind of my mindset.
Working with Donovan, getting to know him, his game.
For sure, yeah. He's a great guy, great player, knows the game inside and out, played a lot of football, strong, smart, athletic, great technique. There's so many great things to say about him. And it's been fun just, each day, growing day at a time. And but it's great to play with him.
So some of the defensive linemen that have had those extra reps with Chris out, have you seen anything for some of these young guys that are maybe taking advantage of the opportunity out there?
Yeah, Coach Colin, D-line coach, has, got a lot of guys in there, and their effort's so high, and they're so detail-oriented too. They know the game really well, and yeah, it's a challenge each day. It's great competition, and it's been a great challenge.
Really young team, especially for a defending Super Bowl champion. You're one of the veterans. How do you take that role on as a leader, both on and off the field?
Yeah, for sure. Try and give young guys advice here and there when I can, especially amongst the O-line, and try and lead by example. Try and work hard, do the right things, on the field and off, and try and be there for the guys if they ever want to bounce ideas off me. And it's taking a day at a time. Yeah.
How seamless have you felt Wanya Morris's day when he gets an opportunity to pop in there?
Yeah, he's doing really well too. Kind of switching around on both sides. Another, he's in his playbook all the time. Learning the system, learning the details of each play, and he works really hard too. And strong, really nice guy, and he's just absorbing a lot. But he's doing really well. Yeah.
You have like 35 championship rings. What was the ring ceremony like? Are we really that scary that you had to sneak around?
No, I mean, I was just excited to celebrate with my teammates, and I just wanted to just get in there and be with the guys, and that was kind of my main focus. But it was a lot of fun, the Clark family, the Chiefs organization put on a wonderful event, and I'm just honored to be part of it. And it was a great celebration, but we're 0-0 this year, and so everyone's starting at the same spot. So just trying to take it a day at a time, and yeah.
Is there photos? You find a few on red carpet?
You'd be hard pressed. I don't know. I don't think so. But it was great. It was great. I mean, that's just. I just want to be with the guys. Yeah.
It's hard to believe this is the year 3 for you and Creed next to each other. What's this energy like between you two at this point?
Yeah, it's great. Creed, Creed's a great player and knows the offense so well, at this point, inside and out. It's great working day by day, and along with Trey too, and just the interior guys, and just trying to, just keep pushing each other, keep getting better.
Couple more if there are. The new guys coming in, blocking for Patrick Mahomes, maybe a little bit different than other quarterbacks. Is there any sort of pointers you've had to say, hey, hold the blocks a little bit, or any other pointers?
I think just play through the echo of the whistle. It's you never know what's going to happen back there when you're when you're blocking and Pat's got the ball, he can make a lot of great plays happen. And so just, straying through the echo of the whistle, straying through it all, and, just try and play with great technique and effort. Yeah.
Joe, for you having been in New England and been a part of the championship run and then that aspect of it coming back the next year, what is it you have to do to kind of reset this year and help your teammates kind of also reset as well?
Yeah, I think, I think there's people, we won it last year, but we're all 0-0 this year. We haven't done anything in 2023, had no wins now, and everyone's starting the same spot. And, I think people are aware that we won it last year, and I think, we're going to get everyone's, I'm sure everyone's excited to play us, and we're excited to play them too. And, but like I said, it's just taking it a day at a time and just keep working, keep improving, keep trying to get better.
That's Joe Thuney speaking earlier today at Chiefs training camp. Love talking to the linemen. You can hear the smile on their faces. They're always having a good time. They like a little bit of attention. It might not be always their favorite to be in the spotlight, but they like a little bit of attention. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and we're going to play What Is Wrong With You. But before we get to break, we have this from Pete Thamel of ESPN. Sources, both Utah and Arizona State have applied for formal membership to the Big 12 Conference. And there's a call tonight with the Big 12's presidents and chancellors to discuss their membership. Arizona applied. It was approved yesterday. So when you woke up, all that stuff you read about the Pac-12 maybe keeping it together and the tides were turning, it was BS. It was lies. It was wrong. Don't you feel bamboozled just a little bit? I know I do. Utah and Arizona State applied for formal membership to the Big 12 Conference. The Big 12 will be 16 teams deep by the time we talk to each other on Monday. I have a feeling. We'll take a break. We'll talk obviously much more about that with the time we have left. We're off early at 5:30 today for Royals baseball. But when we come back, we're going to crown a weekly champion on What Is Wrong With You, sponsored by Top City Metal Supply. That's next here on 580 Sports Talk.
What the hell?
What the hell?
What the hell?
What the hell? What the hell?
We will keep you up to date on the breaking news. ESPN's Pete Thamel reporting that Arizona State and Utah have applied for membership to the Big 12 Conference. Meanwhile, there is an Oregon Board of Trustees meeting happening right now, and one of the people on the call is doing it from a golf course. There is a lot happening in the world of college sports realignment as we speak. But we're going to take a brief break from that to have a little fun with What Is Wrong With You, sponsored by Top City Metal Supply. Top City Metal cuts the metal you need to your specifications, saving time, money, and material. Never settle when it comes to metal. Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field. 3 days in a row, I correctly said the word Boulevard on the first try. Very excited for that. The winner presently for the week is the oblivious boyfriend from San Antonio who showed up at a gas station to meet his girlfriend at 11 p.m. And his girlfriend was there with some guys who shot at him. Now, they didn't hit him. So 4 hours later, he was in good condition as he drove to meet his girlfriend at her house, where there were more guys there to shoot at him. This time, he did get shot twice in the leg. But the woman who was very obviously putting a hit on her boyfriend is not the What Is Wrong With You. It's the boyfriend who got shot at by a bunch of guys who were with his girlfriend, and did not occur to him that maybe he was being set up. I don't know if he was so in love or where his brain was, but clearly didn't realize that something was amiss. That's why he's our oblivious boyfriend. And right now, he is our weekly champ. Kyle Manthe, across the glass, producer, engineer of today's program and the program throughout the week with Brendan Dworzinski on vacation, is going to join me for some What Is Wrong With You today. You ready to get started, Kyle?
Always ready.
All right. We're going to go with my story first today, and we are going to Florida. We meet 52-year-old Sergeant Brendan Fitzgerald. He is a sergeant of the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, and he got arrested on a charge of obstruction without violence after an argument over a parking spot on Sunday in Manatee County. Fitzgerald was part of a large group of people involved in a fight over two handicap-accessible parking spots at a private condo complex in Bradenton Beach, according to a Bradenton Beach Police Department probable cause affidavit. Fitzgerald told police another man struck/pushed him during the argument, and he wanted to press charges. The man told police Fitzgerald had struck/pushed him first, and he planned to press charges too. More than a dozen people who either participated in the argument or witnessed it gave statements to police. The only person who refused to cooperate was Sergeant Fitzgerald. He refused to identify himself and quickly alternated between being calm and aggressive, and kept stating he was a Hillsborough Sheriff's Sergeant and I should take note, according to the arrest affidavit. I'm a sergeant. I know the law, kid. I'm not identifying, Fitzgerald told police. When told he was going to be arrested for knowingly and willfully obstructing an investigation, the affidavit said Fitzgerald responded by saying, "This is a joke. You're a joke. You can't take me for obstruction. Learn your laws, boy." Fitzgerald was arrested and given a $120 bond. As a result of his arrest, the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office has placed Fitzgerald on administrative leave.
I just don't get it. You of all people, you're a sergeant. You should know what to do and what to say to get. Like, you have to say you were there. He's just, I don't know what he's thinking.
This is a joke. You're a joke. I know the law, kid. Yeah, the law says you didn't cooperate with this investigation, so we have to arrest you. Like, you're obstructing an investigation. You're talking about you want to file charges. This other person wants to file charges against you. Man, just cooperate. And we don't have a problem here. No, learn your laws, boy. It's kind of a loaded thing to call somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to make too many assumptions about Fitzgerald and maybe the arresting officer and maybe something they don't have in common in regards to maybe the color of their skin. But I think maybe I would be willing to guess that there might be a difference based upon the use of the term boy. That's not one that comes out unless you're saying it with your chest and you're saying it with that context. Typically, that's one that comes out in that kind of context.
And
so
throughout the whole process of his just, I'm a sergeant, take note of that. So he's just, I'm reaping, and you're like, oh, this is great. And then you get what the rewards of what you reap. And
when you sow, it's like, hey, what the hell, man? Yes. Me reaping. Yes, it's the Twitter meme.
Yes.
Me reaping. Yes, this rocks. Me sowing. Hey, what the hell? That's a sanitized version of the initial tweet. But that's what Sergeant Fitzgerald had going on there. No question about it. Man, yeah, you pull out boy. Yeah, that's whew. And in a certain context, he's lucky all he got was arrested. Anyway, what's your story today?
My story's a little more wholesome. We're going to head over to Maine, where an 87-year-old woman managed to fight off a teenage attacker who broke into her home in the middle of the night. Marjorie Perkins was sleeping in her home about 2 a.m. on the 26th of July when she woke up and saw a 17-year-old boy standing over her and heard him say, "I'm going to cut you." The former elementary school teacher stood up and began putting on her shoes, but then started being hit by the teen intruder.
Oh, no.
Perkins somewhat slowed the attack by grabbing a chair and using it as a shield, and she began screaming for help, but no one was around her to hear her. She kicked him with the chair and blocked him from kind of getting closer, just kind of maneuvered it in between them. The boy eventually grew tired, left her alone, and went to the kitchen of the home. And Perkins recalled that's when she realized he wasn't wearing pants or shoes. After the two ended up in the kitchen and Perkins told the boy he needed to leave, he replied that he was awfully hungry and he hadn't had anything to eat for a little while. Perkins responded by handing him a box of peanut butter and honey crackers. She also gave him 2 tangerines and a pair of Ensure protein shake containers. The teen accepted Perkins' offerings and began eating some of them. And while he was doing so, Perkins dialed 911 as fast as she could. The boy left before police arrived, but officers tracked him down a few blocks away with the help of a police dog, arrested him, and booked him into a youth detention center on counts of burglary, criminal threatening, and assault. Perkins told the Times Record that she hoped the boy is afforded all of the help he needs putting his life back on track because he would do a darn good job when he would mow her lawn 10 years ago when he was a kid.
Oh, my goodness.
She also said she was thankful she hadn't been hurt worse during the break-in because she stays active by teaching line dancing classes.
Hell yeah.
Maybe that's how she was able to evade him, was all of the line dancing teaching.
Man, that's obviously there are some things that are going poorly in the life of that 17-year-old. And hopefully this can be a precipitating event to get some things back on track. But what a way to evade potentially a much worse situation. Just, hey, you want a snack? You look like you could use a snack. Would you like a snack?
It's kind of difficult.
As a matter of fact,
trying to read her if she's trying to offer him the snack. If she was intending, I guess she was intending to call 911, but she didn't seem to. She seemed to just kind of want him away rather than want him like punished for breaking in. I'm focusing more on the actions of Perkins, the older woman, rather than the boy who obviously may have some struggles in his life that led to this.
Yeah, that's 2 tangerines and some protein shakes. That's good eats. Some peanut butter and honey crackers. That's a great snack.
It was a very grandma move just to get out of evade the attacker by going into grandma mode, essentially.
Yes, such a grandma move. Grandmas love to solve problems with food, right?
Just hand him. And the detail about him coming and mowing the lawn 10 years ago is just, it's like you know who it is and they know each other.
That's not a knock, by the way. I also am always in favor of trying to solve problems if you can with snacks or food.
Very peaceful.
Shout out to Marjorie. She's made some pretty stern stuff. All right, who wins today? I got to go with the police officer losing his mind over being arrested. Now I know the law. You can't touch me. I know the law. The law says I'm a policeman.
I'm right with you. The audacity of him to just know what's coming to him the whole time and just keep doubling and tripling down.
You better learn the law. And you better learn the law. 52 years old fighting over a handicapped parking spot, man. Grow up. It's a good story. Does it beat the oblivious boyfriend?
They're both oblivious in their own ways.
Yes, correct.
I still think the boyfriend is just a little too oblivious for it to happen twice.
Yeah,
or for it to be your girlfriend.
Yeah, if it had only been one time he shows up to meet his girlfriend and he gets shot at, like that, it's not a story. It's not something we bring up here. It's the fact that he went back 4 hours later. Not like, you had a long time to forget, let bygones be bygones. 4 hours after you were shot at, You gonna go hang out with her? Oh man, I got that you up text. I mean, I'm up. I may as well go see what this is about. Hey, it's about you getting plugged in the leg. The Oblivious Boyfriend is our first weekly winner for the month of August on What Is Wrong With You, brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. Metal cut to order when you need it. Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field. We'll come back, talk more conference realignment. Oregon right now has a guy on a golf course saying it's time for us to join the Big Ten. And also Arizona State and Utah are going to join the Big 12. Like that, it's all happening. And we're going to keep you up to date with the latest on that when we come back here on 580 Sports Talk. .445 on 580 Sports Talk. You can't make this stuff up. The Oregon Board of Trustees, University of Oregon Board of Trustees, is having a meeting right now in which accepting membership, applying for membership to the Big Ten Conference is being recommended. The chair of the Board of Trustees is a gentleman named Steve Holwerda. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his last name right. Steve Holwerda. And he is conducting the meeting and playing a round of golf at the same time. When I said there was somebody in the meeting on the golf course, I don't mean, he pulled up his cart, at the 5th tee box and he's waving groups through. He is playing his round of golf. Stuart Mandel's got a shot of him climbing out of a sand trap. And he's conducting the meeting. He's not part of the meeting. He's not listening in. He's the chair. It's one of the most consequential board meetings in college sports history, and a guy can't be bothered to interrupt his 18 holes. Really kind of makes me feel like Oregon's an SEC school at the end of the day. That is one of the funniest things I've ever seen. He's just playing through. He has not stopped. I'm going to put the picture up on the YouTube. This is too good not to share. If you're on the YouTube stream, you can find us on Twitter at youtube.com/@sportson580. And you can subscribe and you can watch the program. And I'm going to put this picture as soon as I can get it uploaded. I have to show this to you, folks. This is one of the most remarkable things. This is, again, the chair of the Board of Trustees. And he is conducting the meeting, the University of Oregon Board of Trustees, right now. They are about to leave the Pac-12. They are going to detonate a 108-year-old league to join the Big Ten Conference. And this is what my guy's doing. It's up on the stream right now. There he is. That's Steve Holwerda climbing out of a sand trap. Point of order. Can we stop? I yanked my tee shot right, and I've got to look for it. Can we hold on while I dig my ball out of the rough? Nobody's going to notice if we're playing winner rules, right? There he is. That's how one of the most important, most consequential board meetings in the history of college athletics is going down, with the chairperson unable to quit playing golf. And I don't know if you can do anything but respect it. Oregon AD Rob Mullins is speaking at this meeting right now. Brian Fisher of Fox Sports has quoted Mullins as saying, "This is an opportunity in a rapidly shifting collegiate athletic space to provide that premier conference both academically and athletically for our Oregon Ducks." So that's going to happen. And as we also told you a little bit earlier this hour, Pete Thamel for ESPN reporting that Utah and Arizona State have applied for formal membership to the Big 12 Conference. There's a call tonight with the Big 12's presidents and chancellors to discuss their membership. Arizona already applied, already got approved. I don't know what held Arizona back from making an official announcement today, if that's the case, but that is Pete Thamel's reporting that Arizona has already applied and already been approved. We knew that they had been approved. The Big 12 met last night to approve Arizona's membership. What we did not know is that they had already applied for that membership. That is fairly new reporting, I believe, from Pete Thamel. So Arizona's in. Utah and Arizona State have both applied. Big 12 presidents and chancellors going to meet again tonight. They are going to accept both Arizona State and Utah, I would imagine, unanimously. And the Big 12 is going to be 16 teams, whether that's official tomorrow afternoon, whether that's official Sunday, make it a weekend news dump, whether that's Monday morning, they put out the press releases and the shiny, Photoshops with the logos next to the Big 12 logo. But it's happening. It's happening. The Big 12 will be a 16-team league. And it's pretty remarkable, given where the Big 12 stood, never mind 12 years ago, when Nebraska and Colorado left. 2 years ago, where the Big 12 stood, on the brink of nobody knew what. When Texas and Oklahoma left, the remaining 8 that were going to be left after that, that did not look like the foundation for a lot of people for a viable athletic conference moving forward. But those 8 schools stuck together, came up with a plan, invited 4 athletic departments, A, with a commitment to athletic excellence, and B, with devoted fan bases committed to the excellence of their athletic departments in BYU, Houston, Cincinnati, and UCF. Not only ensuring the survival, but the ability to thrive of the Big 12. Then we kind of felt that, that might be it. Yeah, Big 12 is going to have 12 teams. It's going to be great. It's going to be a good league. Yeah, I'll miss Texas and Oklahoma on the football side, but it's going to be a good league. Everybody's together. Everybody's excited to be in the league together. Nobody's got wandering eyes. They're not likely to be poached by any of the other conferences. They got a new TV deal. They seem pretty set as number 3 in the hierarchy of college sports conferences. And if you'd asked me 2 weeks ago, never mind 2 weeks ago. This all started last Wednesday. Now, you could see the train coming down the tracks because the Pac-12 kept kicking the can down the road with regards to their media rights deal. And it became, as a result, more and more and more obvious that the Pac-12 did not have a deal that was going to make their members happy. And if they didn't have a deal that was going to make their members happy, their members were going to look elsewhere, particularly Oregon and Washington. So you felt like something was coming, but it has happened so fast. Truly remarkable stuff. That's where we're headed. And again, it could all be official by tomorrow afternoon. I would expect it to be official by the time we're on the air on Monday, that Utah, Arizona State, and Arizona will have announced by that point that they are members of the Big 12 Conference. None of them have to pay an exit fee. They all get the pro rata $31.7 million per school that was part of the latest media negotiation because they're all Power 5 editions. So it's all happening. Tweet from Roger Sherman of The Ringer. I'm in my feelings about all the dying rivalries in college sports, but at least the Big 12 is accidentally bringing back the Holy War. You don't see it on a lot of greatest rivalry rankings or whatever, but man, BYU and Utah hate each other. I don't even understand all the things they're mad at each other about, but I appreciate the hate. Elite rivalry, glad it's back. That is a very cool thing about the Utah Utes coming at the same time that BYU has joined the Big 12 Conference. You get the Holy War, and that's a conference game. That's going to rule. That's going to be a great spotlight game for the Big 12 in prime time every single year. That's awesome. I mean, I am also excited for that. And Utah, Colorado, the Rumble and the Rockies. That was a fun little manufactured Pac-12 rivalry that I think both fan bases will be happy to see continue. Multiple reports. It's official from that Board of Trustees meeting somewhere between hole 6 and hole 7 for our guy Steve. The Oregon trustees have unanimously approved accepting an invitation to the Big Ten and joining in August of 2024. So that is official, as official as it gets. Oregon is on their way. Washington will eventually have a meeting, and they'll vote the same way. And all of this should be official. And the timing of it doesn't matter, but it's coming. And the Big 12 surviving and thriving with 16 teams. It's going to be a fun league. And as long as nothing else changes ever again, the Big 12 will be in a great spot. Surely that will happen. Surely this will be the last we ever speak of conference realignment. Surely what we end up with following this season into 2024 and beyond, surely that will be the end of it. We've only got half an hour left of the program, and a big chunk of that's going to be spent with Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs. He's going to join us about 5:15 for another training camp report brought to you by Hy-Vee and by Azure Credit Union. So stay tuned for that after our national and local news as we wrap up the next hour, this edition of 580 Sports Talk.
Topeka FM 104.9.
Let's get it. Final half hour of the day and of the week here on 580 Sports Talk. Dan Lucero hanging out with you just a little bit longer this week. Flying it solo with Brendan Dworzinski on vacation, but we'll be back together again, reunited, and it'll feel so good on Monday. My great thanks to Kyle Manthe across the glass, who has produced this week's shows. He's done a terrific job. I appreciate him a great deal. Excited to be back with Brendan, who's got to be thinking, wherever he is, boy, I picked a hell of a week to go on vacation. One of those weeks, and I've already used this quote this week, so you can give me a hard time for being repetitive. But in sports, as in everything in our culture, there are sometimes decades where nothing happens, and then there are weeks where decades happen. And we might have had one of those weeks here on 580 Sports Talk. We have certainly had one of those weeks in the world of college athletics. Multiple reports now from Action Network and The Athletic that Arizona, Arizona State, and Utah have all applied formally for Big 12 membership, and the Big 12 will meet tonight to make it a done deal. Meanwhile, Washington and Oregon have voted to accept their invitations to the Big 10. I wasn't aware of a meeting that Washington held today. That may have been their meeting last night. They were scheduled to have a meeting at 9 p.m. Pacific time and pushed it back like an hour and a half and ended up having that meeting that was in executive session, so nobody got to watch it. But they may have voted at that meeting, and we wouldn't know one way or another. But apparently they've already voted to accept. Oregon just voted to accept while the chair of their board of trustees played a round of golf on the Zoom call. And Pete Thamel expects an announcement to happen shortly. Like, very shortly. Like, as in the @GoDucks Twitter account, the official Twitter account of University of Oregon Athletics, just tweeted big things ahead and spelled the word big, B1G, which you may have seen as a stylized way to tweet about the Big 12. So that'll be official by tonight that Washington and Oregon are going to join the Big 10, which means probably at some point this weekend, the Big 12 will announce its 3 newest members. And I don't know what happens to the Pac-12. I don't. I don't know what happens there. I mean, they only have 4 teams. I don't know what happens there. Does Stanford go independent? Do they try and maybe stick with Cal, and Washington State and Oregon State try and join the Mountain West? Maybe try and absorb that all under the Pac-12 umbrella and turn what was the Mountain West into the new Pac-12 and keep that under the Autonomy 5? I don't know what the next move is for those schools. But the University of Oregon has just tweeted their press release to make it official. The University of Oregon will join the Big Ten Conference in 2024. I'm thrilled that the University of Oregon has the opportunity to join the nation's preeminent academic athletic conference, said UO President Carl Schultz. Our student athletes will participate at the highest level of collegiate athletic competition, and our alumni, friends, and fans will be able to carry the spirit of Oregon across the country. Oregon will be accepted, and their membership will begin August 2nd of 2024. Director of Intercollegiate Athletics Rob Mullins says in the press release, accepting membership into the Big Ten Conference is a transformational opportunity for the University of Oregon to change the short and long-term trajectory of our university and athletics department. The stability and exposure of joining the Big Ten is of great benefit to the University of Oregon. We are grateful to the Big Ten presidents and chancellors for accepting our application to join the conference. We look forward to the opportunity for our student athletes to compete in this conference, which includes many of the best programs in the nation in every sport. It's all happening. 18 schools in the Big 10, 16 in the Big 12. That's what we'll be looking at by the time we get back together on Monday. How many games will the Royals winning streak be by then? We got Royals baseball coming your way tonight. A 6:05 first pitch, 5:30 pregame coverage as the Royals open a series against the Philadelphia Phillies. Jordan Lyles takes the mound for the Royals tonight against Philadelphia ace Aaron Nola. On Saturday, it'll be Alec Marsh facing Christopher Sanchez. On Sundays, Zach Greinke toes the slab against Taijuan Walker. Royals go in, of course, with a 6-game winning streak after a 6-0 homestand. Only the 5th time ever that the Royals have managed a perfect 6+ game homestand. And they'll try and keep the good vibes going tonight. You'll hear it right here on 580 WIBW. Typically, we would have a much longer headline segment here, so we could do a much deeper dive into press releases like the one just released by the Big Ten Conference that reads, the Big Ten Council of Presidents/Chancellors voted today to admit the University of Oregon and the University of Washington to the Big Ten Conference, effective August 2nd, 2024, with competition to begin in all sports for the 2024-25 academic year. That is as official as it gets. Washington and Oregon. Puddles the duck and Dubs the extremely good Husky dog. Big Ten legends all. Big Ten legend Joey Harrington. Big Ten legend Warren Moon. Oregon and Washington heading to the Big Ten. But we have a shortened half hour of this show instead of the full hour. So we're going to take a break right here. When we come back, we are going to speak with the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, Mitch Holthus. It's the 5th installment of our training camp reports brought to you by Hy-Vee and by Azure Credit Union. We're going to get Mitch's insight and hear from General Manager of the Chiefs, Brett Veach. That's coming up as we wrap up after this break. 580 Sports Talk with Mitch Holthus.
.9.
On this Friday edition of 580 Sports Talk, we welcome in the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, Mitch Holthus, for our 5th edition of his training camp reports. Mitch's report are brought to you by Hy-Vee and by Azure Credit Union. Ask Haven Byrne, Crystal Rippey, or Melissa Hunter about using the Credit Union Advantage for your home loan. Mitch, today we focus on the architect, the general manager of the Kansas City Chiefs, Brett Veach, and he's done the hard part, right? He's found the franchise quarterback. He's paid the franchise quarterback. He's got 2 Super Bowl rings to show for it. Now the second hardest part, that's putting a championship roster together around the franchise quarterback that you have to pay. That's an easier said than done task, but Brett Veach has proved up to it thus far, and you've had a chance to talk to him about how that task changes over time.
And honestly, when he slapped down the Lombardi Trophy last year on the stage and said, "This is what a rebuilding year looks like," it was his reaction to hearing all of the naysayers for months. The Chiefs have done something unique in this day and age of the NFL. They've already won a Super Bowl championship in the second contract of a QB1 massive quarterback. It has not happened with Aaron Rodgers. He has won. It did not happen with Russell Wilson. He got his massive contract. He has won. It hasn't happened yet with Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert or Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts, the other guys that have made huge money here. So you're right. The Chiefs they're already ahead of the game in doing what they've done, but now they have to try to do it to repeat, which is very difficult to do in this day and age of the salary cap and having those QB1s take up 22% of your cap space.
A big reason why they were able to do it last year was the contributions of their rookie class. And certainly any team needs and welcomes immediate contributions from the players you draft. But what has made the Chiefs unique under Veach, Mitch, is their ability to find those diamonds in the rough, those 4th through 7th round, day 3 picks, and even undrafted free agents that have made a difference for the Chiefs these last 5 years as Patrick Mahomes has been their quarterback. Is that going to be part of the equation, the sauce moving forward for the Chiefs?
Has to be. And now instead of it being a luxury, it's a necessity under the auspices of what we mentioned at the beginning of this conversation. 3 levels here. One is finding the veteran and rejuvenating them. That's the Jerick McKinnon story. There have been several in that, but that's McKinnon, probably the lead one there. Second would be getting the young draftees. And I'm going to focus on this year's second-year guys that were last year's great rookie class. And the Chiefs set a record playing 8 rookies on defense and special teams in the Super Bowl. Never happened in NFL history. But you alluded to the third part, and that is you have to find guys that weren't even drafted at all. And the Chiefs last year with Jack Cochran made the team, very key special teams contributor. Jack's having an even better camp this year. But I talked to Brett Veach, and he just mentions their importance. Don't sleep on the third day of the draft or when the draft ends. The first second after the draft ends every year, it is the New York Stock Exchange opening bell, wild flurry of activity and calls and trying to recruit guys to come be undrafted free agents. And right now, Brett Veach is leading the way, maybe doing that better than anybody in the NFL.
And, just like last year, we had a group to come in here and play a lot of snaps for us and help us win a Super Bowl. And I think the same will be expected from this group. I think they're going to have to come in here and work hard. And we've got some good practices under our belt now. It is amazing to see how much these guys have grown from just the rookie camp to where they are now. But we're going to need them to continue that progression upwards and be ready to go week 1.
And what I've seen so far, the undrafted free agents, guys that weren't even drafted, how good is this class and how much could 1 or 2 of those guys help right away?
Yeah, our staff has done a really good job. We take a lot of pride in that third day of the draft, and that third day of the draft is not just rounds 4, 5, 6, and 7. It's undrafted free agency, and so we look at those guys as if we had extra 7th round picks. And over the last few years, we've been able to add guys that come in as undrafted guys and are key contributors. And I feel like this year there's a handful of guys, and you and I have spoken a few times about Derek Prince. I think he's a guy that's come in here and has really made a strong impression.
Deneric Prince is out of University of Tulsa, started at Texas A&M. If we're playing tonight, he is the number 1 kick returner. He would get rotations on scrimmage downs, had a touchdown again today. He's a Nile Davis clone, even put him in number 34. Some other undrafted free agents, Justin Ross, who's a social media phenomenon right now. People need to slow down on that a bit, but he made a one-handed catch today, but it was in one-on-ones. Like, let's come on now. But he was a great player at Clemson. Mike Caliendo, offensive lineman, who's an undrafted free agent a year ago, put in the crock pot, simmering a redshirt year. He could make this team. It's a hard team to make, Dan, and you've got guys that weren't even drafted that are threats to make this team.
Mitch Holthus is the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, joining us here on 580 Sports Talk. These training camp reports are brought to you by Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union. Veach brought up Deneric Prince. You brought up Deneric Prince. That was a name among the undrafted free agents that stood out right away when the Chiefs picked him up, because there were some similarities in terms of particularly a metric called speed score with Isaiah Pacheco, who, of course, was a big 7th-round find and ended up being a running back number 1 for the Chiefs down the stretch into the Super Bowl last year. You compared Deneric to Nile Davis, which is a fun comparison. What is it about him that stands out most immediately when you've seen him in this camp that's going to give him that chance to be a day one contributor?
Blend of power and speed. And one of the things, Dan, that was underrated about the Chiefs' run to the Super Bowl championship last year was the integration of the running backs into the passing game. And you'd say, well, gosh, the running backs are involved in almost any team at any level. But I'm talking hitting the third level. You think of the 56-yarder McKinnon had last year, but a key weaponry in this Chiefs offense now that people don't recognize very often is the fact of the running backs getting to the third level and making big plays. Deneric Prince has already shown that, whether it's a deep wheel route, even a double move, and he's got a blend of speed and power. Now, he's got to run a little more of the shoulder pads getting down. It's always the protection issues he's going to be asked to protect. Jerick McKinnon is a great tutor for these guys. Pacheco's got to get better at it. And quite honestly, Pacheco's next step, after having 61% of the runs from week 10 on last year, is to be more of a factor in the pass receiving game on deep passes, on deep routes. Now, you're going to get the screens. You'll get some big plays on the circles and angles. But the Chiefs will take their shots, and they'll take a shot at a running back. So far, Deneric Prince has been as good as anyone on those deep throws, being able to complete it like a tight end, so to speak.
A place where the Chiefs have had maybe the most success in finding late round and undrafted contributors has been the secondary in recent years. And this year, there are a couple of players that fit that mold that are first-year players that have started to turn some heads in camp. Nick Jones, a 7th-round pick out of Ball State, and Echo Boydo, the local kid from Lawrence and Kansas State. Both of them took first-team reps, in fact, at camp earlier today. When the Chiefs evaluate that position in particular, is there something that they're looking for, a commonality between some of the guys that they've been able to find late in drafts and have success with, a secret sauce to that, if you will, to find corners and safeties who can help them?
I think in the case of Boydo, and really also in the case of Nick Jones, it's intelligent quotient, football IQ. K-State plays a pretty sophisticated defense as well. They're very NFL in their approach on both offense and defense. And Boydo is a smart dude. Well, you've got to have, it's not just playing, I'm going to play press coverage and shut down and be Revis Island or whatever. It's no, you've got to understand. I get into it next week with McDuffie and Brian Cook, the guys that are second-year players. But you've also alluded to guys last year like 7th-round pick and Jalen Watson came out of nowhere. And Joshua Williams was an earlier pick, but he came out of the second or out of Division II. So this is a mishmash of guys. But to answer your question, the common denominator is athletic enough, but it's the ability to grasp concepts, and to play within a team framework that makes them so good. And for whatever reason, this is where the due diligence of Brett Veach and his staff came into play. When they were evaluating all of these guys that we've talked about, that was a key component. Not necessarily the fastest, highest vertical, but athletic enough. You got to play in the NFL. You got to be athletic. You're playing Jamar Chase and, you're playing Justin Jefferson. But it's more so, and as much, understanding concepts and a variety of defenses to throw at the opponent And that's another way to neutralize the Justin Jeffersons and Jamar Chases of the world.
One last question for Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, in this training camp report here on 580 Sports Talk. How would you describe the relationship between Brett Veach and Patrick Mahomes? When we talked about Mahomes earlier this week, you said that there's a little bit of general manager to him in the way that now he looks at the game and looks at his responsibility with the organization. How does his relationship with Veach maybe match up to that, or how would you define that relationship with those two?
I've spoken a lot this offseason, especially about the power. You mentioned secret sauce in my answer to you. And one of the things that I bring up in these presentations is the power of listening. And I would tell you that the respect level between Veach and Mahomes is best accentuated when they're willing to listen to each other. And it doesn't necessarily have to be about something directly related to the offense. It can be about Veach will go to Patrick and go, "What do you see in Nick Jones? Hey, dude can play. Like, I see him turn his hips. He's way ahead of the curve." So Veach now goes to Mahomes, but then Mahomes will go to Veach of like, "Hey, are you looking at this guy and this guy and this guy?" "Yeah, we are." "No, we aren't." I mean, that line of communication is rare, I think, between a quarterback and a general manager, but it is respect. And it's the ability for both to listen to each other and not blow the other guy off, basically. So, yeah, it's very unique. And you also have to build depth with what Brett Veach is doing. I mean, today we got the announcement, Charles Omena, who's suspended for 6 weeks at the beginning of the season. And, we're counting on him. This is not a complete surprise. There was a domestic incident, allegedly. Not sure where it's going to go from here. Coach will probably talk about it tomorrow, ensuing days, but you got to build depth. And so now a guy like Felix Anudike-Uzomah has got to step up a little faster, get the curve moving a little bit quicker, or a Joshua Kando, who was a later round draft pick, who's been in the system 3 years. So it's not just these guys we've mentioned, but it's guys of building depth as well, so that you have a strong 53-person roster to handle everything that comes at you. And all 32 teams will be facing curveballs and sliders and cutters. That's just the way the NFL is. And if you're not ready for it, your season can go down the tubes in a hurry.
Mitch Holthus joins us for training camp reports, and they are brought to you by Hy-Vee and by Azura Credit Union. Ask Haven Byrne, Crystal Rippey, or Melissa Hunter about using the Credit Union Advantage for your home loan. Mitch, it is always a pleasure. Have a great weekend, and we'll look forward to resuming our training camp reports on Monday.
And next week, we will dive right into the middle of this so-called sophomore class. They have been impressive. They're better than they were last year, and we'll get into where they can be better, where they must be better for the Chiefs to be just as good to try to win a division again and get a bye.
Can't wait for it. Thanks, Mitch.
You got it, Dan. Thank you.
That is Mitch Holthus, and that is where we are going to wrap up this edition of 580 Sports Talk, because we've only got 45 seconds and counting until the Royals Radio Network takes this signal over, and we will have Royals baseball for you tonight. My great thanks to Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Chiefs, to Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com, and to each and every one of you who've rocked with me today and all week as I've hosted the program solo. Again, a huge, huge thank you to Kyle Manthe across the glass as our producer engineer for this week of shows. Brendan Dworzinski will be off vacation and back with me on Monday, and we're going to have a whole lot more to talk about with the Royals, with conference realignment, with the new Big 12, 16 teams, and so much more. We look forward to that. We wish you all a very good weekend. For Kyle Manthe, I'm Dan Lucero. This has been 580 Sports Talk. The Kansas City Royals are next.